Mandy, could you please call the roll?
Armstrong,
Yes.
Rayner,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Van Stryland,
Yes.
Carlstone will be here later, and Hopkins is absent.
The City Council has adopted the Code of Civility. As elected officials, we pledge to promote civility through extending respect to others, listening to understand, disagreeing without disrespect, engaging collaboratively, and speaking up to address incivility. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast for Pella TV, so anyone who wishes to speak must approach, actually, I think we'll approach that microphone over there before speaking, so that those listening at home can hear your comments and see you on camera. Can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Brander, Horst, Spanstra, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Rayner,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Van Stryland.
Yes.
Motion passed. This time, anyone wishing to address council regarding any agenda item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, as you know, we have two budget review sessions tonight and tomorrow night. We're going to go through our budget for our next fiscal year, the 2026-27 year. A lot of detail, a lot of conversation, a lot of work has been put into it, and so I think we'll start with kind of an overview of the budget, and then we will work our way through all of our departments. And so, council members, at any point, if you have questions or clarifications, please feel free to get somebody's attention, and we can ask those as we go, so we stay on top of the discussion. So I'm gonna, before that, I want to thank the council and Dave. I was in Florida at our last meeting, and I was listening in, and I was very impressed with the way the meeting ran, and very impressed with the discussions that went on. So I think you guys all did a really good job. There was a couple difficult things to talk about, and I thought you guys did a really good job listening into it. So appreciate that. So thank you for the efficiency at which the meeting ran and the discussions that were had. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Mike to begin our budget discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for those in attendance and those watching at home on Pella Fiber, I'd like to direct your attention for a very brief presentation and overview of the FY 2027 budget. Now, when we talk about the 2027 budget, we're talking about the fiscal year that would start on July 1st of this year and end on June 30th, 2027. And what we have up here is just an overall approach to this budget, and we're going to be diving into each one of these in more depth over the next couple of evenings. So with that, the budget, if you want to have three takeaways, I think these are probably the three biggest ones here. As far as from the department levels, what we try to do with the budget is maintain existing service levels with the departments on this. We also, in crafting the budget and the budget proposal this evening, I want to emphasize is the state of Iowa is discussing property tax reform in Iowa. We have some examples of property tax reform to share this evening. We'll be going to go over this here very soon. But anytime you have property tax reform, you always got to pay attention to that, how it impacts your finances on this. And our official recommendation is if the state adopts property tax legislation this spring, let's come back and revisit the general fund budget to make sure that it's our financial plan that we're discussing this evening and tomorrow night as well is still adequate. And then also with both the electric utility, the water utility, and the wastewater utility, we are feeling some utility rate pressures, and this is mainly driven by both capital projects that are planned in fiscal year 2027 and also long-term capital improvement projects. And we are proposing for this budget utility rate increases for both the water and wastewater. For the water utility, we're proposing a third deep well for the utility on this. The cost of the well is just shy of $7 million. Overall, we feel to fund that well over the next 3 years, rates could increase somewhere between 10 and 20%. Wastewater is going to be initiating a long-term capital facility plan, and this is due to treatment standards that's been imposed by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Overall, that facility plan could be in the neighborhood of $25 million on this when you look at it. So rates through the year 2030 may increase upwards for somewhere between 35 to 50% for the wastewater utility to fund that large of a capital improvement. But in both cases, the rate increase is also partially due to the capital improvements for the utilities that we're going to be talking about, both utilities tomorrow night. So let's go ahead, please, Heidi. Now, as far as the overall budget is concerned, when we look at the 2027 budget, we're just shy of $70 million in total revenue for the city of Pella. Overall expenses that are associated with this budget is just shy of $82.4 million. And when we look at it, we are proposing a drawdown of cash reserves of just roughly $12.5 million. The big share of this is when you look at the city's budget and you factor in the timing on our bond proceeds for some of the larger capital projects that get extended over 2 years. Good example of this would be the city's recreation center that is actually being constructed over 2 years. We issued the bonds this last year for the project. However, the construction is going to be taking place mainly in 2027. The community center is also going to be planned to have construction in 2027 as well, and we are proposing with that project a drawdown of about $5.5 million in reserves. So when you look at last year, the budget included $17.2 million in bond proceeds. This budget is at $4 million, but when you look at the capital improvements, we're at $32.7 million proposed for in 2027 compared to $26.3 last year. And again, a lot of that was bond proceeds issued in 2026, projects taking place in 2027. So overall, when we talk about the city's overall budget, this is all city funds. We're also going to be going over each individual fund here very shortly. So I'll dive a little bit more in depth when we get to the individual funds. But before we go on, is there any questions as far as the overall budget? Okay, if not, Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Start off with property taxes. What we're proposing for the property taxes is to maintain the city's current property tax rate at $10.75 per $1,000 of taxable valuation. But I want to put a caveat with that. Once again, the state of Iowa is discussing potentially significant property tax changes, which would reduce property tax revenue for the city of Pella. And as we said earlier, if the state does adopt property tax legislation this spring, our plan is to come back and review the general fund's financial plan to ensure it is still adequate as well. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, overall, when we talk about the city's proposed property tax rate, maintaining the property tax rate at $10.75, it's important to note that the city has one of the lowest property tax rates in the state of Iowa. Our rate's at $10.75. We pulled off some cities that are fairly comparable in population size to the city of Pella, but it really doesn't matter whether they're comparable to population or not. If they're bigger or smaller, most often the city of Pella has a lower property tax rate than they have. So ours is at $10.75. When you look at all these cities for 2026, they were at $16.35 at taxable valuation. So again, Pella has one of the lowest tax rates in the state of Iowa. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, as far as electric rates are concerned with this as well, with the city's electric rates, this has been really a success story by the city council over the years. It all deals with long-term planning. In 2012, we actually joined Missouri River Energy Services, and we started buying all of our power from Missouri River. That same year, we closed the city's power plant. And at the time when we started the city's long-term power supply plan, our rates were some of the highest in the state of Iowa, and we've made significant progress through this. And right now we're at 17th out of 143 municipal electric utilities as far as overall rates. However, when we talk about the city's electric utility, it is important to note that we have received power supply increases from Missouri River for the last 2 years. They're forecasting power supply increases over the next 4. We may need to, starting in year 2028, which would be 1 year past this current proposed budget, we may need to pass along some of those rate increases that we are receiving from the power supply. We'll go over that in more detail tomorrow night. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. As far as water and wastewater, our rates are very comparable when you compare us to other utilities. We do have listed up 2 of the local utilities for rate comparisons. One thing I would like to note, when you look at the water rates, it's very important to keep in mind that not all utilities offer the level of treatment that the city of Pella does. We've incorporated a reverse osmosis treatment process at the city of Pella. What that enables us to do is put in a very high quality wastewater product in the pipes on this. So oftentimes our customers pay the city, and that's the end of their water bills. A lot of utilities that may not necessarily incorporate a reverse osmosis system and has the same sort of same water source as the city of Pella, which is the Jordan Aquifer, may not necessarily take those methods, and oftentimes customers of those utilities have to buy additional filters and filter systems as well. So that's important to keep in mind, that when we talk about water cost, not everything is always reflective in the city's rates. A lot of this is determining the treatment process that you do undergo. But it is important to note, when you look at the typical residential customer on that 10% rate increase, we're looking at about $4.40 on the water utility. Wastewater would again be at that $4.50 per month as well, is what's being proposed. So more details for tomorrow night's session on both utilities. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Okay. As far as personnel, the budget overall includes $16.3 million for employee compensation. That includes both wages and benefits. We are proposing a wage increase for the city's workforce of 3%, and how that translates to most of our non-union staff, that would be a step increase. It is important to note that we try to match up on the compensation scale to the employment cost index from the Midwest. For the 12 months that were ended on December 31st of 2025, it was just over 3%. So typically we vote on the increase of cost of living adjustment, wage adjustment for the city workforce in June. By that time, we should have the March numbers on this as well. So there is a chance that there may be an uptick in the budget. We may have to budget an extra percent on that. The good news is, and for most of the funds, we do have a surplus planned in most of the funds in case we have to go up to 4% on that as well. In addition, when we're looking at the employees, we're budgeting $80,000 for a compensation review for the city's workforce as well, and that is included in the budget. And finally, I'd just like to mention, when we look at health insurance for the city of Pella, we've seen some significant increases on health insurance. Health insurance costs are projected to increase by 10% next year on it as well. So that was a significant cost that's, tended to complicate things as far as the proposed budget that we're seeing this evening. And looking at, for as far as employees, there are no new employees being proposed with this budget. And a lot of this is just dealt with the state uncertainty at the state of Iowa right now with property tax legislation. So when we looked at any new employee requests, we had to keep in mind that there could be significant property tax changes coming at the state as well. So we've taken a very cautious approach with that, but there are no new employees proposed for this budget. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. As far as personnel highlights, and again, we're at 126 full-time employees. And offhand, Mandy, if we were to look at that as far as the total FTEs, what would that number be?
It's really hard with the seasonals in there, lumping in all part-time.
Yeah, we're probably about 175, 180 when you look all in. And the FTE is 2,080 hours. Instead of that, counts all the part-time employees as well. And so with that, that gives a little full-time's one portion of it, but about another third of that is actually part-time employees as well. So again, no new employees for the city of Pella proposed for the 2027 budget. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, overall, when we factor in the proposed water and wastewater increases on this, and we also factor in the increase in assessed valuations for a typical residential home, we're looking at, for the typical resident in Pella, now this would be a resident that owns roughly a $300,000 home, we believe that this budget means an increase of about $14.42 per month for that typical home in Pella on it, or an increase of roughly $173 per year. But again, a majority of this increase is located in both the water and proposed increases in water and wastewater. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as tomorrow night, as council is aware, what we typically do is we always touch on the main points of the budget, and this is the interactive portion of the meeting, which we're going to be looking for feedback from the council. And I wanted to share on some of the things that we will be asking specifically with the questions and guidance tomorrow night on this. We're going to be checking to make sure the council is in favor of maintaining the city's property tax rate. As you recall, with the property tax rate, we actually sent property tax notices out to all residents in the city of Pella at a rate of $11.33. That was intended to allow council to have flexibility in case there's something that we have in this budget that you feel that needs to be funded. You have the flexibility to go up to $11.33. But we will be checking with council to make sure there is support to maintain the city's property tax rate at $10.75. We're also going to be making sure there's support for the proposed increases in both the water and wastewater utilities as well as the planned compensation increase of 3%. And of course, we're going to be reviewing and checking to make sure everyone's in agreement on the operating and capital budgets for the city of Pella. So Mandy, let's go ahead. Now we'll switch gears and we'll do a brief presentation on the city's general fund before we start with the department budgets this evening. So once again, with the general fund, this funds a majority of the operations in the city of Pella. When people talk about government services, they typically think police, fire, EMS, library, parks and rec. That's all included in the city's general fund. And what's being proposed for the general fund is to maintain the city's property tax rate at $10.75. And then for the departments, what we're trying to do is maintain existing service levels as well. And once again, I know this sounds like a broken record, but again, if there is property tax legislation adopted by the state of Iowa, we're planning to touch base with council on that as well. And you'll see why that is important here in just a second. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. This is the proposed budget for the general fund, what we have up here. And as you can see, when we look at general fund, and this is just the operating, but as far as the property tax growth, we had a revenue increase of just shy of 8% at 7.8% for property taxes. And as you can see, overall for the general fund, we actually had an overall revenue increase of 2.44%. When we look at the operating expenditures, again, we're at $14.3 million for the operating expenditures, and overall we have a planned surplus of about $131,000. If we were to add in an additional percent for a cost of living or a wage adjustment for the general fund employees, that's about $90,000. So we do have funding in the general fund if we did go up to 4% for a total compensation adjustment. Now, with this, it is very important to note that property tax has been talked about in the state of Iowa. Before I show you the next chart, I'm going to state for the record, I have no idea what the state is going to do. There's currently 3 bills being proposed, and there's lots of things being proposed in addition to property tax reductions with these bills. We didn't factor in everything on this hypothetical scenario, but I also want to make sure that council has an understanding of what property tax legislation could mean for the city of Pella. So Mandy, let's show this next slide, please. When we talk about property taxes, most of the bills, actually 2 of the 3 bills, have a common theme where they talk about a 2% levy limit on your operating levies for the general fund. And so how that would impact our general fund would be the first item that you see up in that's red up there. If we were to factor in a 2% limit, and some of the bills have in a growth limit plus new growth that comes to the general fund. So in factoring property taxes, if we were to take this proposed budget and state, let's see what if we would cap property tax levies at a 2% level, plus factor in just an additional percent into the general fund for growth. And you may be saying, a percent, we grow a lot more than a percent in the city of Pella. What we need to keep in mind is a lot of our growth happens in TIF districts as well. So with that 1% is probably somewhat realistic. So you're looking at an overall 3% growth in revenue for the city of Pella. So under that scenario, we'd be at about $219,000. The other thing that we've seen in property tax legislation, and we didn't factor this in yet, but there's also talk about eliminating state assistance on this. If you recall a few years back, and this is probably 2 to 3 years ago, there was property tax cuts for both commercial and industrial property owners. And at the time, the state of Iowa said that they were going to fund those property tax cuts on it. What's being discussed with a few of these bills is to eliminate state assistance and have that be funded all at the local level. If that were to occur, that'd be an additional $131,000. So when we look at this budget, if we were to factor in just under this hypothetical scenario, and once again, I'm like everybody else, I don't have any insider information, but I also think it's important to understand what the ramifications would be if there is significant property tax reductions or property tax reform in the state of Iowa. Under this scenario, we could be looking, instead of a $131,000 surplus, it could be a $219,000 deficit on this. So in running these scenarios through and talking about the general fund and a cautious approach and revisiting the general fund if the state adopts property tax legislation, this is the reason why on it. We want to make sure that our financial plan is adequate, not only for this year, but also for ensuing fiscal years as well. And so that is something that's very, very important that we do and understand with it. Now, I would also say the $219,000 deficit, that's not insurmountable, and there's a variety of options that we would undertake to address that deficit. But there's a change of roughly $350,000 in this scenario on it. So again, when we talk about taking a cautious approach, this is what we're looking at from a financial planning standpoint. We always want to make sure our general fund financial plan is very, very strong and also forecast over multiple years. When you stop doing over multiple years, things like property taxes, property tax reform happen. That's when you start seeing service level interruptions as well. So again, the approach with the general fund is cautious on this. Let's see what the state is doing. Once we understand what the state has planned for property taxes, we'll rework our financial plan and we'll come back and revisit this budget with the council to make sure that our plans are still adequate. So any questions on the approach for the city's general fund?
I was just gonna ask you, you talked about that 1% growth, and I assume you mean new construction and additions and all of that, that's how you're defining the growth.
That's how we're defining the growth, and on that, that's also would be anything that we would release from the TIF districts to support it as well.
And then if you would go back the last 3 to 5 years, is that a reasonable number? Or is that conservative, or is that an unfair question?
I think when you look back at it, one of the dilemmas that we have, it's probably occurred close to that over the years, and it really depends. Some years it exceeds that. The big thing that we've had recently is a lot of our TIF districts have been retiring, so we've been receiving new valuations on that. So again, that 1% factors in any TIF valuations that we release to support the general fund. So that's somewhat been realistic over the past few years.
So then that release isn't necessarily new growth then?
No, it's growth that's out there.
Already
There's not an
but
obligation.
We can use it now, okay.
Yes.
Does that show any excess TIF revenue, any of that revenue?
No. Yeah, with the one, well, let me take that
On the
back,
rev-
Mayor.
On this
Yeah,
revenue,
Mayor,
general.
I stand corrected. Next year, I'm trying to be conservative with the 1%. If you add it up, it's about $7 million in taxable valuation on that 1% on what we had. And so what I had factored in is, there likely could be some TIF releases in that too. And keep in mind, we're going to blow away as far as new valuations, $7 million in taxable valuations, but it's happening in the TIF districts again. So what we're trying to do is be somewhat conservative with the 1%. I feel comfortable that that 1% could occur with TIF valuations. But again, this is just a hypothetical scenario. This is the reason why it's important to take a cautious approach when we plan for the general fund. Okay.
And I assume that any property tax legislation that does get passed now would start July 1st of this year. So it will affect this budget? Or I know we don't know for sure.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. We're assuming that if there's property tax legislation, just due to the size and magnitude of these bills, that they would give cities at least a year plan for it. So we're assuming that this is going to occur on July 1st, 2027. But
Okay.
I also want to state too that this is not a doom and gloom. The deficit, we don't have a deficit now, and B, please keep in mind, I have no insider information. C, this is just a hypothetical scenario on what 2%, because you hear that a lot, less cap operating levies at 2%. This is what 2% means for us. But when you look at the city's cash reserves, a lot of the reasons why we've operated lean and we've really looked for efficiencies over the years and we've stared up the reserves, says you need those reserves when you face property tax reform. This is our insurance policy that services don't get dropped here. So to keep that in mind when we talk about reserves and financial planning, we have strong reserves in the general fund. This is something we can overcome as well. But we really need to see what the state of Iowa is doing. And the other point, and I've shared this with a few of you, and I'll state it for the record, the state has the right to set the rules for the state of Iowa and also the tax position of the state of Iowa. We got to do our best to live up to those challenges, and we have to deal with it on here as well. But in looking at it, part of the issue in planning this budget that makes things difficult is all the uncertainty about potential property tax reform. So again, this is just a hypothetical scenario, and it's just based on something that could happen if the state does adopt property tax reform.
Well, I would just encourage everybody to stay in touch with our legislators. It doesn't really do a lot of good to talk right now because there's all these different proposals, but when something actually gets out there, I think it's a good idea for us to have some communication before they pass the bill and let them know what kind of effect it'll have on our operations.
Mayor, I think we're ready for our first department this evening, unless council has any questions for me before we get started. So, Chief? Chief Bogart and his staff is taking a seat. Mandy, if we could show the fire department. Overall, from an operational standpoint, we do have two things from an operational standpoint for the volunteer fire department. There's a new program in the state of Iowa that gives an incentive to try to retain volunteer firefighters, and it's a retirement program. We have budgeted $15,000 off the direction of council on this, that's included in this budget for retirement for our volunteer firefighters. In addition, we also have factored in an increase in the per call rate for the volunteers. That was actually going from $20 to $25. It didn't technically increase the budget because the department's been operating under their authorized levels for a long time. And we felt comfortable going up to $25 for the reimbursement per call, that we can absorb that within the current budgetary limits. So with that, overall, we're looking about a department budget of about $159,000. And Chief, if you want to walk us through your capital budget, please.
Sure. The 2027 shows the 42,500 building air compressor project. We were able to trim over 20,000 out of that when we got actual quotes, and so that is a good figure. We're working with Ingersoll Rand on that. The bulk of that is the installation of the system throughout the station, and roughly 10,000 of it or so is the equipment itself. What that will do is give us compressed air throughout the entire station so our trucks can be plugged in so that the air brake systems can maintain enough pressure to release as soon as the truck starts rather than wait for the air to build.
So what kind of a wait time was that, or is that without this?
It can be, depends on how long the truck has sat there, and it varies from truck to truck, but it can be several minutes, 2-3 minutes. And that's an eternity to a firefighter sitting there ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's what we're buying here, is that instant out. And the replacement bunker gear is a yearly thing, and that's when we add new firefighters or we damage gear. That's a contingency fund. We don't necessarily spend that. Currently, we're on our first year of our new gear right now. But we are looking to put some new firefighters on, so when we do that, that's what we have that fund there for on a yearly basis. Any questions?
Did we get your overhead door gizmo fixed, your opener?
Temporarily fixed until the 28
28.
project hits, yeah. So, yeah, we're getting by just fine on that. So with the 2028 projects, then of course the aerial, which was signed a couple of years ago, and the good news is that's a hard figure under contract and can't be changed, so we're locked into that because, believe me, those figures are higher than that now. We're about 2 years into the 4-year wait. I've told by the sales rep that we will be visiting with him probably about mid-year or so and start on pre-construction, print approval drawings, things like that. So it's getting closer.
So the order's just been sitting there for 2 years and
Yeah.
no one's done anything.
No,
They don't even start building it till,
no,
okay.
no. They have that many trucks ahead of us.
Okay.
That's the issue. So, yeah. So right now, I've been told that that's even increased an extra year. It's about 5 years now if you order one today, so.
Wow.
I'm glad we did what we did when we
Exactly.
did it.
Yes, yes. I'm
Seems
glad we
like,
did
seems
too.
like a business opportunity for somebody.
Wow.
So also in that year is the overhead door replacement CIP that we put in there, and that is to replace the doors and the operators of all the overhead doors of the fire station. We looked into repairing them, replacing components in them and so forth, and by the time we added it all up, it was actually just as much money as it would be to replace the doors. So that's why we went that route. So that is basically the last CIP item that we have.
Any questions for our chief?
Just a thank you. Thanks for what you guys do. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
And it's dry out there now?
Yeah, don't light a match out in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Boy.
On a day like today with that wind,
Yep, and that's where we've been busy.
yeah,
Is
that,
it
few grass fires.
Yep.
scary? Scary, scary.
It's really dry.
I have a question about paying for the fire truck when we get it. How are we gonna do that? Where are we gonna get the money?
Yeah, as far as what is tentatively proposed is a general obligation bond that would pay for the fire truck. That, most capital projects, we always look to see if we can pay cash on hand at the time, and that determination will be made for next year's budget.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully you don't get a cold tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
Next up, we have the Pella Public Library, and Tina, here, before we turn the floor over to Tina, what we have here is a very standard, just like most departments, again, status quo budget for the department. As far as the personnel, we had a little bit of play on the numbers here. Last year, when we did our budget, because we were without a director, we actually had 2 employees that were just below the director that we gave temporary increases to help fill in additional duties in the vacancy of the director, and those were budgeted on there. So last year's budget was somewhat, or this current year's budget, that'd be the 26 budget, was somewhat inflated for personnel cost. But again, it's a very status quo budget with no personnel being added for the library. And so with that, I know Tina has a presentation on both the operating and capital. So Mandy, if you want to go to the next slide, and then Tina, if you could walk us, whichever one you'd like to go through first, Tina. So
We can actually go back to the first slide. Looking at our general operating budget, and we're actually the second, no, this slide is fine. So talking about the CIPs, one thing I'd like to highlight is we don't show this current year, but we had on there that we were going to do a roof replacement. But we got a late start on the HVAC replacement. And so the HVAC replacement is being, not replacement, I should say an upgrade, because we're not replacing the whole HVAC. But it was still a pretty significant project. It got a late start, and it should hopefully be finished as soon as this next part comes in. But we're hoping to see some significant cost and energy savings for next year. We won't know, obviously, until next year, but one thing that is not on the CIP anymore is the roof replacement, because I basically asked, is this required? Is it needed right now, or can we inspect it? And I appreciate Wilf going up and, well, maybe not Wilf, but inspecting it to see that if we really need to replace the roof right now. The library itself hasn't had a renovation in over 25 years. And we have some other issues due to preventative maintenance that need to be looked at. So we received a grant from the Carnegie Foundation, and all libraries that were Carnegie libraries or descendants received a $10,000 grant. And I took it to the library board and then to city council if we could spend that working with an architect to see what areas of our library need work. Plus we're expanding and we have no room to expand in our current location. So getting creative with using the space that we currently have. And so we are working with an architect firm and they have presented a proposal to us. So we're hoping to add that to future CIP requests. But part of that too is figuring out when that roof will need to be replaced, as well as other roof. And if you've been in the library meeting room, you know that there's part of the floor has sunk a little bit. So it's things like that that need to be looked at over the years. But just as our building really hasn't had an upgrade in 25 years, we do need some new furniture because most of the furniture in there is still original furniture. So we need to upgrade that. And then our technology upgrades, you'll notice that's kind of a standing upgrade. Our technology, these are public use technology, so those get used quite a bit. So that's an investment that the city makes almost every year so that we can continue to provide that service for the public. Any questions on the CIP?
So I would ask, well, so there's no roof in there for 5 years, is the one there gonna last 5 years?
We believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it the original roof?
I believe so.
Yes. And that's why it came up, because it was like, hey, this is old, let's replace it.
2000 or 99, 2000.
Yes.
Looking in good shape.
Okay,
Ooh,
must have been a good one,
news.
Yep.
cause that would be an expensive proposition to replace the roof on that building.
I think it was $500,000 on last year's.
Okay.
Thank you, Manny. So one thing we worked really hard at is looking at our overall operating budget, and yes, personnel does take a significant portion of that. But I just wanted to highlight, this is our fiscal year 25 snapshot, that the library does get heavily used. So we are a high circulation leader in our group. We circulate quite a bit. We're in the F group, which means our population size is between 10,000 and 25,000. And our use is the highest in that group. And you'll see that we're also high compared to many of our peer libraries that are even larger than us. So the circulation is really high. Our visitors have increased as well. We had over 110,000 visitors this past fiscal year. Talked about technology. You'll see that our website gets a lot of use, a lot of visits. There's a lot more you can do directly on the website, but our computer uses are pretty significant as well. So over the year, we have 4,373 computer uses. And because they get used so much, that's why we do have to upgrade the technology on a regular basis. You'll see that we had 639 programs this past year with almost 15,000 participants. Our summer reading program just keeps getting bigger. Last year we had 738 readers participate. One thing we tried this year, last year's winter reading challenge had about 50 participants. About 30 of those actually completed the challenge. We wanted to get more adults involved, so we partnered with Bredeau, and we were hoping to get 100 participants. We had over 360 people register, including over 100 adults. So we did get a lot more adults. We did not expect it to be that busy. We're very happy that it was that successful. So we do get a lot of community engagement with the library, and our estimated value is over $3.8 million that our services and resources provide back to the community. So that brings me to my next slide. We've worked really hard to try to contain our operating expenses. We've done things like we're doing an RFP, a request for proposals, to replace our library system to hopefully bring that cost down. We did things like evaluate whether we needed to replace the roof. We eliminated hoopla last year. We regularly pursue grants so that we can try to pay for some of the programming or some of the needs that we have in the library. But one of the areas we struggle with is our staffing. So as Mike indicated, due to the property taxes, we can't add any new staffing. But if the city council can find any additional funds, the library would certainly appreciate if we could increase the hours of our current staffing to the equivalent of about 0.72 FTE. And the reason this chart is here is to highlight where we stand comparatively speaking. In an ideal world, you should have about 1 FTE to 1,000 residents. And our residents are based on the 2020 census. And fortunately, Pella is one of the growing areas. Some of these communities are actually smaller now than they were. But you'll see that we're currently at 1.27 FTE ratio for that, which means that we have a lot of people coming in and using the library and not always enough staff to help those individuals. So if we're going to continue to maintain the services, we really could use that boost in hours. It's just not sustainable, the amount of hours that we put in now with the staff that we have. So I know the budget is really tight. I know there's not a lot of wiggle room, but if the city council does find a little bit of money, I believe 1,500 hours comes out to about, if we did 1,500 hours, I think it comes out to about max $35,000 additional in the year.
Do you have current staff that could fill those 1,500
Yes.
hours if they could get paid for it?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Most of my staff, so our FTE is 8.25. Only 3 of those are full-time. And comparatively speaking, when you look at our peer institutions, we have the lowest number of full-time librarians, with 3 full-time librarians. So the rest of our staff is all part-time. And we lag our peers with that as well.
Tina, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's important information for us to know going into budget.
Thank you.
Because if you don't say it, I don't know it. And, you know, as we're looking at extra asks for the budget, it's important for us to bring our thoughts back to those entities that the city operates. So I do appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
And we have tried to ask the county for more money.
Mm-hmm.
We were aggressive this year because I pushed for us to be aggressive. They did not provide the increase, but they were thinking about decreasing us again. But because we asked, they did keep it at level at least.
Okay.
But Marion County is in the bottom 10 as
Right.
far as their support for the libraries.
And on the county level, that's a yearly gift,
That's
correct? You renew it yearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm guessing we're talking, what, $30,000 or
Approximately.
approximately?
30, 35?
Yeah.
30, 35.
Okay.
Just a question, like, is the number crunching? In an earlier slide, you said that the group Pella was at the top of circulation.
For our group, so the second column is size. So some of the comparative group is E, and I highlight those just because they have much less population, but they are much better staffed. So the E's, you'll see that we actually lag a couple of the E's. So Orange City and Sioux City, actually Orange City is our sister Dutch city, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They have a higher circulation rate than we do, and that is both print and when you include the electronic. And then larger libraries, or our size libraries, you'll notice that we do have the highest circulation rate, including Iowa City, which is a UNESCO, one of 2 in the United States that's a UNESCO literature city. So we even outread them. We also do this, if you look at our visitors, we're pretty high in the visitor range. Oh, and this is 2024 data because the state lags a little bit with publishing their full report. So I don't have the 2025 for that. But we also are ahead as far as number of visits, number of programming that we do for the staffing that we have. And one area we're really hurting in is we don't have, Miss Katie does a wonderful job, but she primarily focuses on children. We don't really have the resources to support our young adult and our teenagers. And that's an area that needs it the most because they often feel most isolated. And they're usually the ones on the screens a lot more, and we know that screen time also leads to things like depression and isolation.
Mhm. So would you say that visitation is up at the library?
Yes.
And if so, what percentile?
Last year, we were at just about 98,000. Yeah, right over 98,000. For 2025, we reported 110,000.
Okay. And what do you attribute that increase to? Are you doing something
Our
differently?
programming increased as well. We had 478 programs last year. And this year we had 639.
Okay.
The reading has increased a little bit as well. We also have had great support. Many of you may be aware that the JT's Corner just got a boost and a renovation. So we really appreciate that the families not only entrust us with their children, but also the memory of their children, which is very special. But that was a huge success and brought in over 600 people just in that one day to do that. And that room has been used a lot more. So I won't even go into janitorial expenses because when you have kids in diapers playing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You get other kinds of things going on, so.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
I do have a couple of questions here. And some of this is kind of old maybe, but back in 2023, we had a referendum to help the city council have a little more oversight over the library. And one of the advertisements that was put out was that our library has more oversight than other city departments because they have a board, the city council, and the city attorney to collectively manage their governance. Can you help me understand what that means? Collectively manage their governance?
So we have a library board that is appointed through the mayor and city council. They go through an application process for that. They are community members, and they are often individuals who utilize the library quite a bit. So everything that they oversee, policy, budget, et cetera, then goes to city council for approval as well. When they approve the bills, I bring the whole list of bills, so if they ever have a question of what we are spending on, they can certainly see that. It's all public record, so that can be asked anytime. But everything goes first through the library board for approval, and then that goes to city council for approval. And we always confer with our lawyers as well for when we make policy changes to make sure we're abiding by it. For example, recently the open meetings and open records required training for our board members. So we had to make sure that we were working with, anytime we were doing a meeting, like we just had an application review. So we checked with the lawyer to make sure that we were abiding by not only our policies, but also what the state mandates.
Okay, well, the board, the appointments, that's just an appointment function. We don't have any policy. We don't help you with any policy, do we?
Anyone is able to provide input, and the minutes are provided to the city council. So if there's any review, we're happy to do that.
All right, well, I don't know if anybody knows this, but do you support the American Library Association?
Do I personally support?
No, we belong, right? The public, Pella
We do
Public?
not, no.
We do not? Okay. But they did give money for this campaign, this Vote No campaign.
I'm sorry,
They gave money for the Vote No campaign. This occurred before you got here.
okay.
And they gave $2,000 that came out of Illinois to help defeat this referendum. So, does the library currently subscribe to Gale or EBSCO research programs?
We do not. They're kind of tricky because not all databases are necessarily directly through them. EBSCO, we do not have any. Gale, I don't think we have any through Gale.
I thought I saw an expenditure for that recently.
I'll double check.
On that, okay. Because I have learned and seen that there are advertising links in these research programs. And some of those links lead to pornographic sites. Now, if you, the way I understand the way that works, if you sign in and give them your data, you're not going to see what a kid sees when he signs in because of the algorithm machinery. Anyway, that should be looked at. We should look at one of those sites over the shoulder of a 10-year-old kid. Let him sign in, let him or her sign in and see what pops up. The other thing that bothers me is that the public schools now have access to the library's database. They can sign in to the library catalog from the school. Is that correct?
I believe that's always been the case here.
Well, okay, maybe it's already always been the case. I'm not saying it's a change of case, but it defeats a couple of laws that were passed last year by the Iowa legislature. One was that there were to be no sexually explicit books in the public school libraries through the 6th grade. And yet if they could go from their school computer to your computer, then they have access to everything in your computer. So it's a workaround. To me, it's a workaround getting around those laws.
Our catalog is publicly accessible.
Yep.
And if you have a library card with us, you can access electronic resources as well. And you can do that from any computer. You don't have to necessarily be at school. You can do that from your own computer at home.
Okay, all right.
I think where this may be coming from is Des Moines Public Library has an agreement with the school. They also have a mobile library that can go on school grounds to do that.
Yeah. So then that brings the public library to the school.
It has even before this referendum went forward.
Well, okay, so are you aware of any sexually explicit material proven harmful to minors in your library?
That have been proven harmful?
Well, yeah, sexually explicit materials have been proven harmful to minors.
There is no data that supports that sexually explicit material is harmful when you read it. In fact, data shows that people who are avid readers are more empathetic, they have higher literacy rates, and have a place of psychological safety.
Okay, well, I just picked up a book today at the library, Blue is the Warmest Color. On the rated books program, it's rated as a number 4. The summary of the book is that it contains obscene illustrations depicting sexual activity, sexual nudity, alternate sexuality, profanity, alcohol use and drug abuse, and suicidal thoughts. Doesn't seem like something a young adult should be reading.
That is not a book that we carry in our library. We had to request that through interlibrary loan.
Yeah, well, it's available.
That is correct. It is available.
Yeah.
It also provides, again, people who read that in its full context will tend to be more empathetic to the the story that's being told in that book.
Okay, well, I'll give you a book report lately. I've got the whole book. I'll read it and I'll bring it up.
Appreciate that.
And I gotta tell you, I don't believe, if you don't believe that reading some of this material has an effect on somebody's mental health, or that makes them more empathetic or whatever, there are books out there that have terrible content. Men raping women, abusing women, torturing women. And it's a primer for what, if you keep looking at even the Marion County Express, we see more and more people being convicted of sexual crimes. They learn it somewhere. Anyway, I'm done.
And I agree that we carry books in the library that have depictions of what you just mentioned. And one of those books does include the library. And just like parents can share with their children the stories they want to read in the Bible, parents can also encourage their children to read books in the library that they think are appropriate for them. We carry books to meet the needs of the entire community, which means it's from birth all the way through 99, and in this community, even beyond 99.
Mhm.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the Bible, because there are a lot of stories in the Bible of adultery, sexual immorality, and whatnot. But all of those stories in the Bible are there to teach us that those are wrong things. They're wrong. They don't glorify them. They don't tell you exactly how to do them. It's an instructional book, not a how-to book.
Well, and many of the books that you also refer to are not instructional books.
Okay, all right.
They're often lived experiences.
Okay, well, I still am a little fuzzy on this collectively managed opportunity that we have as a city council. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I would just say that, I have a daughter who's an avid reader. She lives in Indianola, and, she won't go to the Indianola library. She only comes to the Pella Library because of the quality of the library, so. Doing a great job, keep it up.
Thank you. And she's not unique. We do get a lot of people from, we tend to be a favorite library of Marion County residents and beyond. Thank you.
Looks like we're moving to the police department.
We're ready.
Well, Captain Haase is taking his chair. Let's go ahead and talk about the police department. Once again, the theme is very similar. As far as it's pretty much a status quo operating budget that we're looking at, and overall, when we look at the police department, we're looking at roughly $3.7 million in annual expenses for the department. So let's go ahead and go to the capital improvements, Mandy. And Captain Haase, if you'd walk us through the proposed CIP, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'll just start at the top. A few of these are for 27, 28, and then into 29. But I'll just start at the top of the list if that works for everybody. Our body cam replacement, we did this project last year, or in this current year that we're in right now, and we have replaced all of the department's body cameras with upgraded equipment and upgraded systems. The 2028 is just for ongoing licensing, and is what that $2,850 will go towards. The next one down is our Central Iowa Regional Tactical Team. For those of you that may not recall, that is a multi-jurisdictional tactical team that we're a part of with Jasper County, Poweshiek County, Newton Police Department, Mahaska County, and a lot of other neighboring agencies. As part of that, it requires quite a bit of training for those officers. And that includes ammunition, equipment, uniforms, chemical munitions. A lot of those things are used for training and for if they are deployed in the field for an incident. That's a very valuable team to us as an agency, and and that 7,713 is an ongoing occurrence that funds a lot of those programs with that. The community protection sirens, again, that's ongoing maintenance and inspections, is at $12,000 a year. That isn't used every single year, but it is used regularly. Again, as an outdoor warning system, it really plays an important part just in that public safety. And so making sure that those are operational and well-maintained is very important. The in-car UDE platform and the in-car video compatibility upgrade, those do go together, and those are for this year coming up. So I'll touch on those just a bit. That unified digital guidance, unified digital guidance unified digital evidence is the UDE. And that platform is an upgrade to our current system that we have. That system has become outdated, and through iPro is who we use for the body cameras and our in-car cameras. Again, an essential tool for evidence and storing that evidence and maintaining the integrity of that evidence is really important. So that is where all of our body cams and all of our in-car cameras are downloaded here at the agency and maintained in that UDE platform, so that if we have to use it for court or it has to go to trial or whatever it might be, preparing it for the county attorney, making sure that that evidence maintains a proper chain of custody and that it's followed. It all ties back into that software development and that software use for maintaining that evidence. The next one down is that in-car video compatibility upgrade. That one is for 3 additional cameras. So over the years, when we have gone to a full in-car camera system that we've used, those cameras oftentimes get recycled, meaning when we get a new car, the old camera will go into that new car. So some of those cameras are somewhere between 6 and 12 years old. As you know, with technology, 6 and 12-year-old technology wears out very quickly, or becomes outdated very quickly. And so we have upgraded a lot of those as we got a new vehicle and we put that new camera into that new vehicle. But as we're not getting vehicles as often and we recycled a few of them, we need to replace those 3 as well. That way our body cameras that we did this year can sync with those cameras. It's a much more efficient, much better for evidentiary purposes as well. Kind of ties into all of that. So that is for 3 new cameras that will get all of our cameras, in-car cameras, into compatibility with our upgraded body cameras as well. The load-bearing vests, again, this is something that I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, we upgraded the entire department with those load-bearing vest systems. Those are an outer vest carrier. The substantial comfort that it adds to an officer, most officers historically wore all of that weight around their waist, around that belt, and leads to back injuries and other just discomfort, and those load-bearing vests are substantially better at mitigating those. But they also, when worn every day, they wear out. So that is to replenish or to replace those for many of our officers that have switched over to those load-bearing vests. The patrol rifle upgrade, we have patrol rifles in all of our vehicles, and that in 2028 will be an upgrade of those. Again, just as the life expectancy of those rifles after several thousands of rounds going through them need to be maintained. And then the patrol vehicle, this is 27 is the first year in a lot of years that we haven't gotten a new patrol vehicle. We will pay close attention to that. We have historically replaced a car every year because of the number of hours and the number of miles on those vehicles. We feel that with the Tahoes, they have been more durable. We will see if that durability is able to sustain in every other year with a vehicle, or if that is something that we will need to reevaluate as we move forward. But we feel that these first few years we can manage that and make that stretch just a little bit more, as we've seen them be more durable, and upkeep hasn't exceeded what it would be to just replace. The final item up there, the source transfer switch. That is an item that I think many of you have probably seen for quite a while. That would just, what that would do is the redundancy of electrical systems here in the department. We currently utilize a generator that is at the fire department. We feel that it can sustain that for another year, going into next year for that source transfer switch. But at some point, that will need to be done, and it will just improve that interoperability for us. Should we lose electrical power here, we would be able to then not lose it due to that source transfer switch. If we lost it at one side, it would be able to. I wish Nate was here; he would explain it much better than I can. But
It's an essential backup for the police department.
Yes,
This is an essential service, and the source transfer switch is needed on this. This then prevents us from having a diesel generating set here at the police department. So
yes, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Yes, it is that backup for us, which the generator has sustained for several years, and it appears that it will still be able to. Are there any questions on the police department?
So Paul, if you are starting to, do you think that's gonna be long-term on the patrol vehicle replacement to do one every other year? Cause does that, I'm trying to get my math around that, does that mean the vehicles will last twice as long if you skip a year? I mean, if that works, that'd be fantastic.
It will work for a period of time. I don't think we'll be able to get 12 to 14 years out of a vehicle as a patrol vehicle. A lot of time, we currently have, I believe, I'm not gonna we have 6 to 8 patrol vehicles right now, but the bulk of those 6 are used almost every shift, if not every shift. They're hot seated is the term we use, meaning that when an officer goes off, a new officer comes on, and not every one is used in that fashion, but several of them are. And as those hours and miles add up, we think we can sustain it for a few years,
A little while.
but I'm not sure that 14 years will be a doable for a patrol vehicle that is actually on patrol. A lot of times we'll cycle those vehicles down into our fleet, meaning that they'll go to our detective vehicle, go to a training vehicle that we can drive back and forth to the academy and trainings that officers go to, and then oftentimes we'll recycle that vehicle out to another city department. City departments are law enforcement is hard on a vehicle, so the number of hours that the engines get from being run, plus the stopping and starting and stopping and starting, and the speed that is used are difficult, are challenging for a vehicle to sustain that 180,000, that 125,000 miles plus that they tend to get in that 5 to 7 time frame. It's 5 to 7 year time frame of use. So I think it is manageable now. It is something that we'll keep an eye on, and we'll come back in the future once we kind of get a gauge of where that's at.
So Paul, I did a quick count here. I count 19 police officers, sergeants, lieutenant, you and the chief in the department here
Yes, sir.
that are boots on the ground.
Yes.
Are we adequately staffed for our size?
We are. Right now we are. I think we've had the benefit of our agreement with the school for a school resource officer and our mental health co-responder position, which is grant funded as well. So I think that between those two additions, it has really helped us kind of branch out into areas that we probably wouldn't have been able to do had we not had those grants and had that agreement with the school. So and 19 is a good number for us. It maintains a good staffing on our patrol levels with calls for service, but our biggest challenge is when we hire a new police officer, when a police officer leaves and we have to hire a new police officer, it's anywhere from 9 months to a year before that officer is actually covering shifts. That's, so if we're full staffed, it is wonderful. Like that is 19 is a system we can operate with. When we go down an officer due to somebody leaving and then having to rehire, send that person through the academy, sending them through training, field training with another officer before they're actually filling a patrol shift, it takes anywhere from that 9 months to a year, which is challenging. So I think right now we're in great shape, but I think in the future that may be something that it would be worth looking at.
So we've obviously, Pella has grown area-wise significantly over the last few years with new developments and everything. What's been our progress? Have we been at 19 for a long time? Have we've added in the last couple of years, or?
We've added through specialty positions several times. I don't have the exact numbers here with me right now, but we've added several positions over the course of time. We added some supervisory roles. We added a full-time detective, a criminal investigations detective that has been a great asset to us as an agency. A lot of those have happened over the last 8 years or so that time frame has come. And so we have added, but it's always something that we are looking at for sure. And as the geographical layout of the city continues to increase, I think that'll be another item that we look at along with calls for service and some of those other things. When you go from a sports park to the reserves, that's a Prairie Ridge, that's a ways.
Yeah.
It's a lot of area to cover, and then getting Idaho Drive and Boss Landon area to some of those other areas. Again, those are all challenges for sure.
Well, you're certainly doing something right, because several months ago I read the report, your monthly report, and I know you're doing a lot right. I shouldn't have said it that way, which is kind of a segue in. And when it kind of sparked my thinking when you were talking about the school resource officer and the specialty positions. In this report, I was just blown away. There was a category that said calls to service with minors and youth, and it went all the way back like 5 to 6 years ago, and it was like 128, and then it calls, and it went up to today, this year, and it was 2. Incredible. So I look at that, and I look at these specialty officers, and I just look at a very well-oiled machine, because the numbers don't lie. And I think there's a lot of communities that would love to have numbers like that for their youth-involved calls for services. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Money well spent, very thoroughly thought out. And the numbers, again, reflect that, because that was quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you,
yeah.
Councilmember.
It's you guys, not me. I just read it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we have a tremendous staff here. The officers in this agency are amazing.
Yeah.
They do a great job. They work a lot of long hours. They work goofy schedules, and they adapt very well. And we're very proud to have the people we have.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to me, when I read that, it showed me that you are definitely part of the community.
Thank you.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I certainly don't want to overlook our staff. There's 6 full-time staff in the communications side of it,
Yes.
which is certainly vital to our police department running the way it does. So I don't want to overlook that. I was thinking about the direct people that are directly out on the streets doing work. So they do a great job too.
Yes, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Our communications staff does a great job. We are absolutely blessed to have that service in the community here. And with the new upgrade of the radio system, which is happening as we speak currently, which is great.
When's that gonna be done?
Right, we're going to likely take a little bit of a delay prior to tulip time before going live, just because the go live date and tulip time we're about to match up, and we feel much more comfortable waiting an extra week or two to kind of finalize that before. But we are likely going to be all switched over by June is our hope. So July, I would say at the latest. So we're very excited for that radio project to come to be. But I can't say enough about our communications staff and the communications department here. They do a great job, and having that is a great service to the city of Pella. So I thank you guys for this group for continuing to fund that and continuing to see the value in that communications department as well.
Well, that was verified by your award ceremony the other night too, or your
Thank you.
recognition ceremony.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Paul? Well, pass our appreciation,
Thank you.
pass our appreciation on to the entire
I absolutely.
force.
Thank you.
We really appreciate the work they do.
Next part we have up is the city's ambulance department, why Chief Higginbotham and Andy are taking their seats. We'll just do a brief overview. As far as the ambulance projected expenditures, for 2027, we're just shy of $2.3 million that we have right here. It is important to note that Chief Higginbotham, myself, and Mayor DeWard have been working with Pella Regional on a transport agreement that we are, hopefully will have in front of the city council here within the next 30 days as well. But I think that was a good example of a community partner helping us with the ambulance, and it's a valuable service to the hospital what the ambulance currently performs as far as interfacility transports as well. So Chief, can you please walk the council through your proposed CIP and address any operating questions as well? I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I'm gonna go kind of like what Paul did and go from the top down. Our first thing on there we have is our ambulance remount. That's scheduled for 2028. That vehicle will be 12 years old at that point. It's got about 150,000 miles on it right now. That is the last ambulance we have that we can remount. And a remount is a much cheaper option than buying a new one. If we were to purchase a new one, we're looking probably close to $450 versus the 200,000. So probably in about 2032, 2033 will be when the next one probably needs to be redone. And so that's what we'll be expecting, is a huge jump from that. We could get a few more years out of it, and the reason I say that is the 917, which is our transfer ambulance that the hospital helped us purchase last year with the agreement, has taken a majority of our mileage. We usually average about 70,000 a year across our ambulances. The transfer ambulance did 37,000 miles last year. So it took a majority of those miles, and so that's a lot less miles than we're putting on the other one. So there's a good chance that we're going to be able to have them a little bit longer. We'll just kind of have to wait and see how that works out as we go. So that's the ambulance remount. The cardiac monitor replacement, they are usually on the way most services do it, they replace them when they replace their ambulances. But in 2015, that's when, I wasn't here at that time, but that's when the service bought all three, or two monitors at that time. We added a third later. But it's usually replaced with the ambulance, and they usually get 10 to 12 years out of them. They will be close to 15 years old in 2020, 14 years old. So it's going to time to start replacing them. And they're $43,000 today. Who knows what they'll be at that point with what they're, but that's the projected, and we'll need 3 of them for the Life Pack 35s and those replacements. Mattress replacements, that's for the bedrooms upstairs that we have people sleep every night. And that'll make the mattresses at that point probably about 7 years old, which 7 years is an average lifespan for a mattress. So, and then radios, we've got radios that we need to finish replacing that we're cycling out. We'll have 2 or 3 radios purchased with this year, next year, and then in 2028, and we'll be caught up on radios for quite a while. So that's for our capital replacement. Any questions on the capital replacement part of our service? What I want to kind of give you guys a little update on some of the stuff that's happened over the last year. After our study, we added 4 people, which significantly decreased the amount of unscheduled overtime. You guys were probably seeing in your council updates, you don't have the massive amounts of unscheduled overtime anymore. Those addition of those 4 personnel have helped a ton with that. Another thing that has helped a ton with adding those 4 extra people has been that we, in 2024, I believe we called Knoxville over 80 times to come and backfill us, 19 times last year with the addition of the 4th ambulance. We had the staffing, we just didn't have the equipment to do it. Knoxville still called us over 45 times to go help them. So it's changed from them helping us more to now we're helping them more. So that's, I would rather be it that way than depending on them all the time. You know, kind of with that, we had 240 times we had 2 crews out at the same time over the last year. We had 155 times we had 3 crews out at the same time. And we had 18 times we had all 4 ambulances out at the same time. And we had 1 time where we were responding in our secure vehicle and all 4 ambulances were out. So we've been very, very busy. And this year we are currently experiencing numbers that are past our 2024 record year. Right now we're at 215 for the month of March, where previously 179 runs was our record for March. So we are well ahead of it's. The EMS runs, I say, is a lot like the stock market. It goes up and down, but it's in an upward fashion. So we're going to continue to do that as long as baby boomers are requesting us, which they are more and more all the time. So, but if we really needed anything, it would probably be 1 more full-time person, and that would be to help our part-time budget, because our part-time budget is kind of out of control because we're 1 full-time person short of having all 4 shifts in a rotation. If we had that, then we would really be able to control our part-time budget better than what we are. But otherwise, I think I've hit everything. I didn't leave anything from you, I'm sorry.
So if you had that full-time person, what would that cost to be?
I believe is it 100,000, Brian? Is that what we figured for a full-time employee? 75?
Mid-80s, low 90s.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So our budget for 25-26 was showing a $922,000 loss. We're not there yet. Where are we tracking on that at this point?
As far as
Where we're gonna end up? I know you still have to predict and guess, but you've got
Would you
some
like-
actual data now.
Would you like me to address that?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Mandy, if we can go back, please, 1 slide. We're probably somewhere, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, with 2026, we're probably looking at an actual somewhere about $1 million instead of 922 on that. It's a combination of both revenue and expenditures on that, so.
And then the 26-27, we're at least to be conservative, we're not showing anything from the townships.
That is correct.
You know, so I guess that's what stirs me through my mind. If the citizens of Pella are funding a bigger and bigger gap on that is, I think, something that speak to me as one of those baby boomers. You're going to take me to the hospital or Garden Chapel, whichever one occurs.
Over there.
They're in the life-saving business.
They pick up, don't they? They pick up.
You know, at some point, I think it's reasonable to say if that is a cost, a levy, that if we have to increase that by 6 cents per thousand because of an increase in ambulance cost, I think that could be explained and justified at some point, because we've determined that's an essential service. We've made that decision, you know, when I was on council the first time, and I think there was no objection to the city for doing that. We're just subsidizing the areas around us too, you know, and I think if we're going to continue operating that way, we just have to lay that out flat in front of everybody.
Mhm.
So I have a question, Greg. So I think since we took this over, what, is it 4 years now?
2022, yep.
Yeah. We've had ever increasing, I think you've had record number of runs every year.
Last year was down just a hair from the year
Okay.
before.
Okay.
I think 60 runs, but yeah, they've been record.
Yeah, so the projection for next fiscal year, I know it's impossible to project, but is the thought it'll be up?
I'm expecting us to be over 2,400 into this year.
And where we're at now?
We're up to 215, 179, and we're 20 ahead of whatever we were in 2024 right now at this time. Well, actually 25.
Well, I was just curious because I see the budget number for reimbursements is gonna stay flat. Has there been any adjustment in the rates, the reimbursement rates as of late? They're
So-
staying the steady, or are they increasing at all, or staying the same? or-
They're pretty much the
Like
same.
Medicare,
Yeah.
Medicaid,
Yeah.
it's all
What-
staying the same?
We do GMT. We just got news a month ago that they're increasing our reimbursement, but the problem is GMT has went from 11% of our calls to 8%.
What's GMT?
That's the Ground Emergency Medical Transport Fund that they reimburse us for anything that's Medicaid. And our Medicaid numbers have dropped from 11% to 8%. We did find out that in July of this year, our rate that we get reimbursed for Medicaid, which is guaranteed money, is going to go from $1,502 to $1,959. So we're going to get about another $400 per run. But again, it's a very small percentage of what we do.
And the federal grant, $55,000 federal grant,
That's the GMT.
that's the GMT?
Yep. And I think we're going to be close to 70,000 by the end of this year is what we're going to end up being with it. But we're projecting next year, hopefully more with the higher reimbursement.
And Mike, you gotta remind me, because when we first started talking about this, it was really important that we got started on July 1 of 2022, because there was I thought it was a state state grant that you had to have a year's worth of, I don't see that. Is that
That's the
gone?
federal grant. That's the GMT.
Oh, that's the federal.
So it's the
Okay.
federal reimburses the state who
Okay.
reimburses us. So it's both federal and state, I guess you would say.
Okay.
But that's always at the pleasure of Congress too, right? If
It
it's-
is. It
if
could be
if
taken
if
away at
if that's
any point in time.
allocated as well.
Well, I've been part of a group meeting, continuing to meet at the county level, for the rural areas in Marion County, over the last year. So there's been a lot of discussion. There's 13 ambulance services, and Greg and I have been involved in the meetings. There's 13 ambulance services in Marion County. Pella and Knoxville are the only 24/7 full-time services. Pleasantville, I think, is 24/7 through Friday,
No,
not over the weekends.
they only do daytime hours Monday through Friday, and then
Oh, okay.
volunteer out.
Anyway, so we're Knoxville and Pella are the two. So we've been having many discussions about, once the supervisors have declared EMS service as an essential service. So there are a couple ways to go to get some kind of reimbursement from the unincorporated areas of because as Calvin just pointed out, the taxpayers of the city of Pella, and we increased our tax rate 57 cents a thousand 2 years ago because of the cost of ambulance operations. So the citizens of Pella, the city that live in the city of Pella, are funding our entire ambulance service, in which we're servicing 5 townships and the city of Lighton outside of our own territory. So there's a lot of discussion about, there's a 422 code section of law that allows you to levy some kind of a tax. There's also a 357, that's another section of the code that allows a tax to be levied out in the unincorporated areas of Marion County. The biggest part of the discussion the first time around was how to distribute the money once it was received, once the tax was received. I think there's been more agreement on how we would do that, but yeah, I'm just telling you, we're still in the process of meeting. It's not a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I can promise you that, whatever, if anything happens. We, right near Pella here, with all of the significant taxable valuations we have in some of these developments that are just outside of the city limits, this area would generate the bulk of the revenue if that happens. There's many townships in southern Marion County where nobody lives and there's no value, hardly any valuation. So we're still working on it. I think Mike and I and Greg had very productive discussions with the hospital. I think that we'll come to an agreement with them for some assistance for the transports. That's great. That's a significant help to us, and we'll continue to work on the rural areas. But as Calvin said, at some point, we'll have to try to revisit that. It's a matter of it costs a lot of money, and the service is fantastic.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, what's the timeline if this agreement, if this group of 20 or whatever
Yeah.
gets and says, yeah, makes us happy, then there's a timeline to get it, and it has to be approved by 60% of the people that vote.
Right. And it would have, so we're under the gun to get it ready for the November election.
Of this year?
Yeah, because otherwise you can only do it, I think now only once a year. And I don't know, we haven't met now for a month, and that consultant from West Des Moines, has he provided information?
He provided me with the information that I requested, and I passed that on to Jeff.
Okay.
And I've not heard anything.
All right, well, I'll try to follow up with Jeff and see where we're at, so because we do need to keep going.
And then we've got to sell it.
And then we have to sell it.
Yeah. Cause there was.
The thing of it is, under the 357, if we do the 357, it won't involve the citizens of Pella. It'll just be the rural. So the township trustees will have to sell it to their constituents.
But what's their pressure to sell it?
Yeah.
They're gonna be raising their taxes.
Well, unfortunately for us, our only negotiating tool is to threaten to not service the area.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really have
Yeah.
and so I think what I've heard from the trustees, and we've had several meetings and discussions, I don't think a lot of people out in the country understand that they're not paying for ambulance service at all. So I think it's an educational process. The trustees, we met with them when we first took it over, and it was not a good meeting. It was adversarial. It became kind of an adversarial discussion. But the more recent meetings with the trustees have been much more productive. I think there's much more understanding about what's actually going on and who's paying the bills and this. So I think there's a chance. I think there's a reasonable chance that it could pass once it comes to vote. But
Is it either or of those agreements?
do you mean the two sections of law? The 422 would include the citizens of Pella. And I don't see that one coming to fruition. That's just really a hard one. But I think the 357 has a chance. And Greg was actually a consultant to Marshall County, part of a group that was a consultant to Marshall County. Marshall County adopted a 357, a countywide, and I think they're fairly happy with how
They're gonna put it to vote.
they're putting it to vote. So we'll see.
So 357, then Knoxville wouldn't vote on it either? Or
Not it's all unincorporated.
all the
areas.
unincorporated?
Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest difference between the 422 and the 357 is the 357 takes away the disbursement controversy, because it stays where it is generated.
It's collected.
Where 422D puts it all into one big pot, and then
And
it could go wherever.
separately elected board of trustees, right?
Yep.
If I-
Well, there were 11 there were 11 counties that had the 422 on their ballot last November,
Mhm.
or was it 2 even, last November, yeah.
And-
And 7 of them passed,
Mhm.
7 counties
Okay.
passed it. But what we're hearing is it's certainly hasn't been very smooth. Now they got this money, they don't know how to get distributed. But anyway, I think the 357, I think the group really has come to a pretty good agreement. I think that the 357, countywide 357 would be an easier and a better way to go. And if that happens, then we'll have to deal with our Mahaska County townships in some other way.
Whatever way we go, there's gonna have to be a huge education piece
Yeah.
on why it's needed
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
it's distributed, and so that people understand that it's a necessity.
And if we do that 357, will it generate enough?
Well, I don't know, what do you mean, what's enough? Anything is something. No, it's not gonna, I think for us, what, 136, 140,000 bucks, but hey, that's 136, $140,000. So, stay tuned. We'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Greg.
Thanks.
Baby boomers are leaning on the system.
You were bleeding them dry.
That's right.
Is that all of us here but Dave?
Okay, so our last item for tonight, we need to go into closed session for that. So before we do that, any council member have any other thing about what we've discussed so far you want to bring up?